Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. Just a quick reminder that I'm giving away a $20 Amazon gift card, so if you're interested, all you have to do is leave a comment on every video I upload this week, Monday to Sunday, on either this channel or my second channel, Scary Time. I'll randomly select one lucky commenter from one of those videos on either channel, so I'm looking forward to seeing all of your comments and the best of luck. Our first story of the day is by Stressfart. License email mailboxes of all former employees? I don't recommend it, but okay. A few years ago at my previous job, I was a senior technician at a managed service provider of IT services. We were a small company and were often yes men to just about anybody who would offer us money in exchange to their requests. The owner of our company would not push back against those that made crazy demands, overly cheap, or even overly disrespectful clients. This led to us oftentimes doing tasks out of our normal scope, at cost, and a lot of times being cussed for no good reason. Our primary services included on-site service and support and cloud hosting of in-house and third-party solutions, one of which was Microsoft 365, which obviously is very commonly used for email services. We would keep living knowledge base pages on each company, their services, environment info, and even policies of which different companies may demand, like only follow through with support requests from office managers, or if admin access is needed for this particular cluster of servers, contact Jim. One of our clients was a dental company that was of decent size. They had about 10 locations and were growing. Customers loved them, and we often took pleasure going on site, as it was heaven dealing with such polite people in contrast to what we had to deal with most of the time otherwise. They would even demand us to have some lunch if we happened to be on site during their Friday luncheon. It was great. They used 365 services and only used E3 licensing for their users, which was total overkill. $20 per user per month when most employees barely even checked email, let alone made an Excel doc. They wouldn't take our recommendation to go use the essentials at $5 per user instead, unless it was an office manager or HQ worker. Also, they had a decently high turnover rate as it was a college-type town, and a lot of students would work there in one of the various positions to make decent pay and good experience while attending school. They would come and go. The IT director, literally only a title anyone can wear nowadays, he was pretty bad at his job, of this company called us one day cussing because there were a bunch of mailboxes that were not licensed. We tried to explain that these were mailboxes that we converted to shared of employees that had left. Doing so allows us to remove the license of the mailbox while keeping all of the mail intact and very easily accessible if we need to delegate access to someone who needs to review. You basically get to archive the mailbox for free. He barely even let us speak, and the tech who actually took the call was flustered, so I took it over completely. Using my best well-seasoned customer service charm, I tried to explain to him the same, yet to no avail. They had 180-ish unused mailboxes that he wanted us to convert to a user box and add one of those premium "I'm drinking Stella in a fancy glass" licenses at $20 a pop per month. He resorted to personally insulting me, telling me I'm a tech who got promoted too fast and I should try a 4-year school next time, and demanded it be done right away with no specifics on how it be done. Bless your heart, man. Okay, we'll do it. Luckily, we record the calls. Also, I'll make note this company has a policy that we are not allowed to use PowerShell, which, for those who don't know, is a terminal that allows us to perform action by command line. We can write scripts for special tasks or even do things in bulk, saving lots of time. I knew this very well, and I begged them repeatedly to let us use PowerShell in the past, to no avail. So we ordered pizza in the office and got to work. Converted every last mailbox to normal and licensed it. We even converted a spider into a god as he struck fear in us with his hairy legs and many eyes. We weren't worthy. After we finished, we even had a contest to see who could frisbee Office 2003 discs the furthest, since we had a binder full of them, as well as a few other goofy games for about half an hour before we dipped out. It was a fun late night at work in the end. A month or so rolls by and our accountant had sent out all of the invoices to our customers on that fine second Monday of the month. Our dental commander called us at 12:03 p.m., 3 minutes after he would have gotten his, and he had blown a head gasket. He finally saw the bill for the additional 180 E3 licenses, plus taxes and fees. He was threatening to sue me and my 2 coworkers if our owner didn't fix it. One thing about our pushover owner is that he didn't take kindly to someone insulting his workers directly, as he took it personally, since he interviewed everyone himself. He listened to the call recording after we begged him to do so. He did not like what he heard from IT Commando. He didn't give in, and he even added a little razzle-dazzle that we had never seen before. He even noted that because it was a written policy that we can't use PowerShell, we should have billed the request as a project since they demanded it be done in such a short time, and was not a normal support request. In order for us to remove the licenses, they would also have to have this done at the same project rate, and they would have to pay for the bill as well as the 2 projects now, or we wouldn't touch it. Period. Our project rate was $125 an hour for junior techs and $175 for senior techs. It was going to be about 2 hours per head, all at the senior rate for each leg of the ordeal. So about 12 hours all in all, as there were 3 of us. Computer Commander didn't know that the owner of his company and ours were moderately close friends for nearly 2 decades. Would occasionally play golf together, and whatever company owners do when not at the office. The dental company owner and IT Joe came to our office immediately. Before allowing the discussion to proceed far past hello, our company owner played both calls on full blast over one of those Logitech 2.1 systems. It was loud. Dental company owner was absolutely shocked at what was heard, as this guy was already looked at in high standards. Hacker God was pale white as he sat there and did not move a muscle. He immediately told the IT boy to call an Uber back to the HQ and to stand by in the conference room. He wouldn't be driving back with him. He apologized profusely to us techs, nearly in tears it seemed. He wrote a check for each one of the projects and the bill. We agreed to undo the work for free, as he was a really good client of ours and was always nice. He gave us each $100 Visa gift cards the next week and bought us lunch in our own office a few times, all out of his own pocket. Hacker Dude was fired as soon as the owner of the company got back to the office, and he entrusted us to make love to his IT systems while he found his replacement, who was ultimately better in every way. They took every recommendation of ours, including reducing the license types for the majority of their workers, while confused as to why this was ever a debated topic. That is the one company I truly miss at my last job. A good client. Judging by just how bad IT Commando was at his job, do you guys think he was kind of just faking it till he made it, didn't really understand fully what he was actually doing here, and as a result, made huge mistakes? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Melody's Reckoning. Don't like me leaving early? Guess I'll leave earlier then. I come into work this evening, and one of the first things I'm greeted with is Derek, my coworker on disability, telling me that he's leaving at 8:30 tonight. I ask, disability? He says, yep. Background: anyone who knows someone or is themselves on disability knows that the disability people don't screw around. 1 minute over your allowed hours for the week, and you could lose your check. Anywho, I didn't think the wiser until Derek shows up with the fact that last week, Mike, my nitpicky coworker, had been nitpicking him about leaving 30 or so minutes before the end of his shift. We're a closing crew in a grocery meat department. Once our crap is clean, we're pretty much done and leave early. Unless you're a full-timer, like Mike, who has to stick around to get their hours. Derek even tells Mike, I leave before shift ends earlier in the week so that I can stay and help until we're all done later in the week when we're at our busiest. This is pivotal because the store manager likes to close on Fridays to make sure we're ready for the weekend. He typically annoys us about making sure the meat wall is stocked before we leave. If he comes in the next morning to an empty wall, he raises heck. On a good night, Derek would finish first and top the wall off before heading home. Cue the malicious compliance. This week, Derek worked his full shift every evening. Wouldn't leave a minute before he was scheduled. However, our department leader schedules Derek over his disability time, but gives Derek any leeway he needs to stay within time. So he can arrive late or leave early, no consequences. The time added up to where he had to leave super early at 8:30 this evening, normally 10. Unfortunately for Mike, our department was blown out by the time we were finished cleaning. That tends to happen when the weekend forecast is nice, and we live in a state with a famous horse race tomorrow. This meant Mike had another good hour of work, yay overtime, ahead of him before he could go home. As I was leaving, this is job 2 for me and I don't work enough for overtime, so I was out. I told Mike, next time, don't nitpick the guy about leaving early, he'll just leave earlier. Nobody likes a nitpicker, and for somebody that literally has a fixed cap on their income, they're not going to do extra for you off the clock. I'm willing to bet this was probably a good learning lesson for Mike. Our next story is by Walking Joe, Forklift. About 4 years ago, I was working in a big DIY store in the Netherlands. In this store, forklifts are being used on the sales floor. There's a rule for the employees that says you have to help the driver to make sure the customers stay clear, so there's no accidents. I saw a driver who had a little trouble making a turn because customers wouldn't wait. The aisle he wanted to drive into was just wide enough for the forklift, and there were paint cans on the floor but just enough room. I decided to help him a bit as he was getting frustrated. I asked him to back up a little to get through the turn a bit easier and don't hit anything. He snapped back saying he could do this. I then asked the customers to wait, which they did. When he was turning in, I saw he was about to hit a paint can. I said look out, but he said he had everything under control and keep quiet. He hits the throttle and hits a few paint cans. About 200 liters of paint was on the floor. Boss comes around the corner and he immediately tries to blame me. Too bad for him, there was a customer who told the boss what had happened. We had fun looking at him trying to mop up all that paint. I got a small feeling that this guy might not be working at the store for too much longer. Unless there's a shortage of people who can operate a forklift, that'd probably be the only way he'd have some job security in situations like this. Being so reckless and spilling 200 liters of paint? That's a rough one. And our final story of the day is by Zaddy Mills. Can't tell the difference between us? I won't come to work. This is more mild compliance than malicious, but I'm not sure what else it might be. When I was 17, I worked at a popular southern US fast food chain for only about 3 months. There was a lot of good and bad about the job, but the bad far outweighed the good. About a month and a half into the job, a girl I went to high school with was hired at my location. We were kind of similar looking, similar height, same hair and eye color. However, her build was much more petite and her facial structure was much more angular than mine. Also, I have a very distinguishable facial feature that has been the reason behind a persistent nickname that has followed me most of my working years. The kicker is, we have the same name and both of our names are spelled a rather unique way. I liked my job enough, enjoyed the people I worked with, but some members of management didn't like me for reasons I can get into later. However, the other girl was kind of a flake. I enjoyed her company, even went on a date or two with her years later, but she sometimes didn't show up to work. Somehow management made this my problem. I say somehow, but I know exactly how. They didn't bother checking last names when making the schedules. My last month of the job, they just randomly stopped putting me on the schedule. I would show up for my occasional shift and be told I wasn't working that day, or I would get a call asking where I was and have to rush into work. My last 2 weeks, I had enough. I stopped calling in for my schedule because the chances of actually being scheduled correctly were slim to none. Finally, I got a call hours after my shift was supposed to start one day, and I told them, I'm not scheduled, I'm not coming in. Management says, so are you refusing to come in, name clone? I say this isn't name clone, it's OP and I am not on the schedule. Management says, "I'm pretty sure you are. You need to come in now or you're going to get a write-up." I say, "I'm pretty sure I'm not, and I'm not coming in. Actually, I'm quitting." For the next week, I would get calls about showing up for my shift and have to repeat the fact I wasn't name clone and had quit prior. I feel like that just kind of shows you how much the people actually cared about their job. The fact that they would keep going on and on about this, calling you and getting the same, "I don't work here, I'm not on the schedule, I already quit," and then just repeating the same game over the next week. Doesn't seem like management was too particularly caring about their job. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.